right, did you get a message that we're recording?
Yes, it says we are recording.
Okay, then the music will play, and then it'll say, "Hey everybody, my name's Rich, and this is Ben, and welcome to Reef Beef, where we talk about reefs and beef."
And beef. Yeah, just beef, just cattle.
Just cattle. We used to be called shit talking or talking reef shit with Ben.
Yeah.
But now we're called Reef Beef because saying shit in the name of your show makes it hard to pimp your show on other venues.
And beef makes it easier.
Yeah, people love fucking beef.
Everyone loves beef.
Yeah. So it's going to be
even vegetarians.
It's going to be the same show people have come to know and love in our past episodes. Where
it's just we're putting beef instead of shit.
Yeah, yeah, because people accept
people are drawn to beef and they're repulsed by shit.
Yeah, when I'm on the ReefBum live stream, I can say Reef Beef.
Yeah,
it's comfortable to say talking reef shit. Oh, like and some
children won't be scared.
Some web forms will never put our name up.
They will never love us. We will never get a what is that? The Emmy.
The Emmy will never get the Emmy. Right.
Never.
Penn and Teller's bullshit never got the Emmy. Partially because they were called bullshit and no one could say, and the winner is bullshit, which great and funny.
Dude, I used to love that show.
Oh, it's a great show. People are
it needs to be a thing again.
They keep talking about doing a bullshit of bullshit where they go back and cover everything.
Oh my God. Yeah, because stuff has changed.
Yeah.
But what if they call it beef?
Next time I talk to them, I will tell them that they should call it beef, and then we could sue them.
Yes, that'll be it'll be a way that we can get more money.
Yeah, because we're raking. The cash is.
We got 300 views, bro. 300 views.
Cash.
If everyone threw in a quarter, we're good.
If everyone, we'd have like $20.
Yeah, we'd be like the wishing well at the mall.
Oh yeah. Oh, let's go swimming in that pool.
Yes.
Okay, so we're doing the show. We're kind of doing like 3 sections now, and the first section is beef. What's our reef beef, Ben?
Our reef beef today is still the saga of reef to reef.
God, there's so many better beefs to talk about than this one, but this one
feels like the beef has to continue.
Yeah. Why? Why does the beef have to continue, Ben?
Because they're like a dog with a bone. They will not let it go. They will not acquiesce. But for my part, I don't see him acquiescing.
And what's the problem? In case people listening don't know.
So on their forums, as a recap, and this is my little stain, by the way, but I think it's Play-Doh, but it looks like Italy.
What's the darker stain above it?
There's a darker stain above it, but when I look over here, it is not visible to the eyes. So I don't know what the hell. That might be a sticker or something.
Oh, I think that's love juice.
It could be man sauce. I don't know. But I just wanted to to not be obvious that there was a thing there before we continue.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there's a reef forum, among other things. There's a reef forum called Reef to Reef, and they basically, to make a long story short, there was a LGBTQ plus community on there just trying to post on there, not post about LGBTQ issues necessarily, but drawing other people into it to speak about reef matters, but as in their comfort level and their crowd. And that was shut down. And then people complained and said, hey, there's like a women in reefing one, and they shut that down too. And people are like, okay, Nazi Germany. So they put the women in reefing back, but they've still just just blacklisted. So, there's many different positions.
And they've gone on to remove other threads. They've gone, they've necro deleted posts. They've gone back in time, and anything that had LGBT in the title, they killed and changed the titles in some cases, or closed threads because they don't want that talked about. But it's the same thing as talking about, hey, are there any other drone pilots and reef keepers? And then you talk about reef keeping, you really don't talk much about drones at all, because that's not what the point of the site is.
Yeah, but I just think
as a matter of fact, there's a Mandalorian thread on that forum that has nothing to do with reef keeping. Nothing. Nothing. But that was started by a mod, and apparently that's okay, because one of the justifications is that talking about LGBT stuff is off topic. But barbecue and the Mandalorian, somehow that's okay. But somebody going, hey, are there any other LGBT people out here who are reefing? Let's talk, because we have something else in common as well. That's not okay.
Well, I mean, just people are talking about their hobby on a forum that doesn't, that's the thing, man. It doesn't always pertain to just the hobby. So if it did, then maybe that would make more sense to me if they knocked something off that, like, hey, all subject matter here, we want to stay strictly on aquarium keeping. It's like, okay. But, you know, when you allow a whole bunch of other stuff, to me, it just looks like just hating on gay people.
Right. Because they're not. Yeah. If they were going to say only reef talk and they were then made it only reef talk, no problem. Right. But yeah, that's not what they're saying. So,
well, and there's a petition that has grown and grown and grown, you know, and hopefully what you'd want to see, the petition got big enough to where the people that ran the forum were like, that's a problem. So-and-so amount of people don't like that. I don't know how big it would have to be. And I think, let me state the obvious here, is basically a religious position that the owners of Reef to Reef are taking. So I think you could get 1 million names on a petition, and that's not going to change someone's.
Right. So I don't think we're gonna change. I don't know. Maybe we will, but I'm not sure if that's the point. I think the point is to go, this injustice, this ridiculous, 12th century thinking is impacting what should be a fantastic hub for reef information. And
here's a weird thing, man. Because I've seen now, like I told you before, I don't go on forums, but, I've just been paying attention to this whole thing on Facebook. Is I've been seeing to where you get the trope where some people are saying, oh, you're going after our rights of freedom of speech to say whatever we want. But it seems so hypocritical. But it's like all these people just wanted to be gay on the forum and find common ground and so on and so forth. So, I mean, it's like, it seems, I mean, no one's going after them financially to hurt people, this or that. It's just like, dude, just like gay people, be on the thing. Otherwise, Yeah. And if they won't acquiesce, in my head too, hey, that's fine. It's just would be nice for everyone in that forum to know what they're doing. So if they wanted to migrate somewhere else, you would just know. I mean, dude, I'm kind of doing Godwin's law here, but by invoking Nazism. But it's like, you'd want other German people to say, hey, they're killing Jews. Like, hey, if that's freaking you out, let's do something about it. Just so you know.
And it's even worse because they talk about their forum like, we're the most welcoming forum. We want everyone to come here. We're going to welcome you. Just don't say you're gay in the title of a thread. Or atheist.
There's so many other things.
Those are the two.
Yeah.
You can't say either of that. But in a thread, if you want to talk about rainbows, that's okay. And that's just kind of gross. I think it's gross. That's what it is. It's just why are we?
And trust me, there's 1,000 other things that Richard and I would rather be talking about. Rather not be talking about this.
Yeah, we'd rather be talking about the other reasons we don't like that forum.
Yeah. But that's kind of why I'm saying, just like, hopefully there's a couple other forums that are like not as big as that, but those should be migrated to, and if they provide.
I think we'll keep bringing this up because we don't want it to die. If it goes away and they keep telling people that all of this is based on lies and that nothing really happened, then they just kind of roll over some people that don't deserve to be rolled over on. And so I kind of want to keep it alive because I want sponsors to know about it. And I don't even want sponsors to pull their sponsorship, right? I just want sponsors. I mean, I think the best, because a lot of sponsors get a lot of business because that site's so huge, which is good and a real problem. But I want sponsors to be able going like once a month. I think it would be even better to just going, hey, you should stop discriminating against gay people.
Yeah.
Just tell them that, on every payment or in every sponsor discussion, just bring it up every time and go, yeah, you know, every time I'm doing this, it feels kind of bad. You know, I know some sponsors are considering pulling completely, and I don't even know what to say about that, except, you know, I guess that's what I would do, because that's where my kind of line in the sand is. But, you know, I don't think everyone, I don't know if that's the right answer for everyone. I just want to.
I know it's been like a real, I mean, maybe not to everyone watching this, but if you're like deep inside the industry, you know, like there's been a lot of kerfuffle. There's been a lot of kerfuffle too, because like, you know, when some people have been going to some of the people advertising on and say, hey, do you know this is going on? And like, depending how they react to it, you know, and again, it kind of goes with the theme of 2020 and 2021, where, you know, some people accuse of, oh, blah, 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 politically correct. But it's like, dude, I mean, we're all adults. Let's just, you know, just make it a playing field where, you know, if I was this, I don't have to feel persecuted to talk about something on there just because, I mean.
Just to mention, you know, there's no problem with me going on that forum and going, I was, you know, my wife and I have a marriage.
Yeah.
You know, but you can't say that in the title of a thread if you're gay.
But you're still a cisgendered hetero white male, so there's plenty of people that could still hate you.
Yeah. And nobody is saying that they shouldn't do whatever they want on their forum.
For sure.
But
if it's going to be a religious forum,
since they're shutting down all discussion of this topic on their forum, there is no discussion of it. They delete everything about it.
Just say it's a Reef forum that doesn't like gay people.
Yeah.
If you have a position, just hold it. Just say it.
We're a religious forum, and our religion means that we don't want this on our forum.
But they actually,
and then I'll be here talking about
prayer.
You know,
they have a prayer forum on there, right?
They have a prayer thread. They do that thing religious people do that's crazy, which is they go, but prayer is not religious. It's like, yeah, it is. Well, we have people who, you know, say good vibes, and it's like, right, so call it the good vibes thread, not the prayer thread, and there'd be less of an argument here.
Can somebody send prayers to my yellow tang? It's got ick, and we can pray the ick away.
Yeah. So anyway, we don't want to be talking about it.
Yeah.
But we're probably going to have to. So we'll put the petition in the links, change.org petition, and we'll see what happens in the future with that.
Check it out, sign it, whatever.
Reef Beef. We need like a big logo. Reef Beef.
Yeah, like before we do it, that like slaps on there, like Reef Beef.
Be like this.
Okay, now we're waiting as he creates the Reef Beef.
Beef.
Yeah, but like better than that.
Yeah, because.
But that's a good first attempt.
But I think it might be funny to do all of those things you would do in the computer now, just like with markers, with crayon. Beef. Yeah.
Reef Beef. Like it would be like next segment, and it would do it right before we went to it. But speaking of segues,
that was fun.
Let's go to our practical thing.
Yeah. What's that? Oh, what were we going to talk about? Oh, CO2 scrubbing. You had some work with that this week.
CO2 scrubbing, pH chasing, so on and so forth. So I wanted to bring up a thing. So I have a maintenance company in Houston, and you know, every single different setup's a little different. What you're trying to achieve, what's going on, this or that. I do have a client that has a small office space. And we run a Neptune Apex on there. And I just, you know, I've had that client for 10 years. I watch it closely. I'm there once a week. So it's like a VIP, like labor intensive type of client. And I was always kind of seeing what seemed like depressed pH. And, you know, and that's the thing. You're like, oh, the pH seems low. Like, did I, you know, is my pH probe, is it properly calibrated? Is it old? Blah, blah, blah. You know, you calibrate it, you put a new one, still seems a little low. But here's the thing is you look at the tank, you're like, but does the tank look bad? Like, do I perceive that this is a problem? And then I just wanted to, which, man, you got to be careful with experimentation. But I was like, I want to see if I can get it higher and make things better. So I put a CO2 scrubber on it.
Okay. So you put a CO2 scrubber before the intake to the skimmer.
Yeah, like the way I first caught scent of these things was it was from Bulk Reef Supply, and it's almost like RO RO unit housing, but this was their monster one because this tank is decently big. It's not monster big, but it's decently big. It's 360 gallons. But so is their big unit that sits in a housing that has 4 legs on it. And it's like the big, like the extra wide canister. And it was filled with, and so help me here.
Yeah.
What is it? What is that material? And the material comes from scuba diving world.
It's called Zorb. And
okay.
It's in a CO2 absorbing media.
Okay. It's like calcium carbonate.
It's made of magic. I don't know.
It's eco-aqualizer.
I don't know. But real magic, not eco-aqualizer bullshit magic.
Yeah.
And if it gets wet, bad things happen.
If it gets wet, bad things happen. However, like, so I ran with that setup for like a year and a half. And so I'll get to that, but I eventually scrapped it. But the thing is, you still want humid air running through it. So every time I visited the tank, I had to undo the thing and put a little bit of RO water in the bottom of it. But man, it would evaporate in like 3 days. Yeah. And if it didn't stay humid air, then it wouldn't quite work as efficiently.
Did it impact the pH?
It did.
Like how much?
It did.
Significant.
But then here's the funny thing is again, this problem with chasing pH, because, watching it on the Apex, I'm like, cool, I brought the pH back up. And then I spent months upon months upon months of looking at the tank and like, what did it do? Like, because what I wanted to see was faster coral growth or calcareous algae growth or, something. And things were good, but it wasn't like an explosion of good. And so I was kind of like, well.
How much did the pH increase?
It was right in around 7.8, 7.9 to 8.0, but it would rarely like jump into the 8.1s and above. This was before I put it on.
Yeah.
Then I put it on and the lowest I'd get was 8.0, 8.1, at night. And then would ride up to, I'd get like 8.2, 8.3. So the numbers were kind of where I wanted them to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good zone. Like, I mean, realistically with pH, you're not going to peg it at 8.4, 8.5 and just straight line it. No, it doesn't happen.
It does this anyway, right?
Yeah.
But that's great that it went up a useful amount. But then, like you're saying, the question becomes, is it worth chasing that media and spending the money on it and keeping it wet and doing all that stuff if you're not seeing a significant change in the animal life, right? Because that's what really matters.
Well, it's not like it was overly expensive. I will say, from a maintenance standpoint, it was an extra pain in the ass thing I had to do where I was like, all the rigmarole involved with it. But then I'd look at the tank and I'm like, I don't know what, if this squeeze is worth the juice.
Right.
But in another thing too, besides trying to keep a little amount of water in there. And then I got in a discussion that involved you too, but Matt Wandell was telling me this thing where I could take the intake from it and put in like drill it onto like the top off. So I wouldn't have to replace water, but that it would draw from.
It's drawing moist air all the time.
Yeah. But then at that point I was like, dude, do I drill another hole and I do this? And I don't even know if this thing is like, do I want to continue with this? But on top of that too, it's a pretty big skimmer. So the media turns purple as it exhausts.
Yeah.
And between trying to keep the water in there and, replacing the stuff all the time, I was like, I pulled it.
Yeah. You weren't getting any extra money for it.
It was just extra work and whatever bonus I was getting from it. After 1.5 years, I couldn't quite quantify.
Yeah. I guess Go ahead.
Not to say that it doesn't work out real well for someone else, but it was just the squeeze was not worth the juice.
Yeah. No, I think that's really like a lot of how I felt about a lot of the skeptical reef keeping articles when I talk about magic stuff. It's like, the squeeze isn't worth the juice. That's exactly what happened with GFO for phosphate. It was like when I just, too busy to do GFO, nothing changed in the system. Everything still looked fine after 8 months or whatever. And then test it. And the phosphate's insane. It's like, do I need to start squeezing that again?
Yeah.
And I decided not to, and things seem okay.
What I did instead, here's the kicker. What I did instead was the explosion of good that I was looking for that thing to do, which is adding an Avast Marine K1 caulk stirrer that has a doser on it that adds back to that. So adding caulk washer was like the best of everything.
Yeah, it helps the pH, and it's so much easier to do than the
acros in the system. Acros fuzzed out that I didn't even know were ones that would fuzz out. It was just like, it was immediate and huge and just bam. And whatever work that I have to do with, replacing the caulk from time to time and this and that, it is about the same amount of work I was doing to the other thing, but it has immediate and like very palpable results.
Yeah.
Of what I saw right in front of my face.
Yeah. I would actually say it's way easier because, if you've got your caulk system set up right, you drain it, you dump in your caulk, and you put new water in, and it mixes, and then you're done. I mean, there's just kind of nothing to it.
Well, and food for thought, and this should be, most people should know this, but the beef. But
eating your thoughts.
Yeah, but don't ever use something fast to drive the caulk reactor. So I use a BRS peristaltic pump. And I believe I'm using their ATO one, so it's a slow drip. So worst case scenario, it's slow dripping caulk.
Well, we should at some point, we'll do one of these practical things about caulk, because there's all kinds of things that you need to pay attention to not kill everything.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's a whole thing. But going slow is definitely the major one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I considered putting it on a timer and making it only run at night too, but I haven't quite felt.
I killed my tank. I killed my tank twice with caulk.
Yeah.
Different ways.
I have killed client tanks with caulk, so it's
two different ways. As long as you don't kill your tank, killing your tank's bad. Killing it the same way twice, you did that. That was.
Wait, you talked about it on one. The thing where we were talking about, you used muriatic acid to bring down.
Yeah, when I had a big overdose. Yeah, and muriatic didn't really do it. It was CO2 that was the hard thing.
What was the second time you killed?
It was just a different way. Same kind of result, but a different way. And so when it happened first, then I added more redundant and problem solving and heading things off at the past equipment. And then after the third time, even more. So there's a lot has to happen now for caulk to overdose in my system now. So
one of the times that I bombed a tank out was using the tons of osmolator, which is a top off that I love.
Yeah.
But I'm aware that you can go into the thing and you can make that little pump go slower. But that little tiny little sump pump, it can kind of go at a clip, and it was just dumping caulk in a tank, and it was just you just want it to drip, man. You don't want it to fly into there.
And mine has got all of the bells and whistles that you can think of to stop caulk problem. The pump, it's I think I'm running on a peristaltic pump right now, but that's on a float switch, and that is only on 15 minutes. The power to that thing, so it can't actually pump more than 15 minutes at a time, and then it's hooked to the apex, and there's all kinds of redundancies now.
If you have it run for 15 minutes, what sort of break do you give it?
15 minutes. It's a timer with the tabs, so it's just 15 on, 15 off.
Oh, okay.
So at the most, it can run for 15 minutes at a time if it's running. So it gets energized for 15 minutes at a time if the system's not calling for it. And it's also not my top off anymore. It's, I set the amount of mils I'm adding every day, and then it just does it throughout the day. But
did you have to kind of calculate how much your tank evaporates and then wanting to dose that inside of that?
That is one of the things I changed because if you have an automatic top off and something goes wrong, whatever it is, if your skimmer overflows and is dumping water out, which mine is less likely to do now as well. I think that was the cause of the first one. I forgot what I was saying. I'm an idiot.
With the caulk washer, getting it to not dump too much.
Yeah, it just can't. I was going somewhere useful, but I don't remember what it was.
So terrible. It's consumption of too much beef.
Oh, it was not enough beef. It was that it's not the auto top off water. The auto top off water is its own thing. The caulk is its own thing. In my head, it's like if you're doing 2-part, you don't mix the 2-part. It's the same thing. Yeah. ATO does one thing, caulk does a different thing. So
which is a good safety thing. But did you have to go through and like observe, like, okay, I'm evaporating 10 gallons a day, so I'm at least going to dose in like 8 gallons of calc a day, and then the ATO will just run less.
Yeah, you just got to, exactly. And you just got to dial everything in for your system, right? So after talking, you reminded me that I really want to up the caulk a little bit more, because I think it does provide a bunch of good things. And it's time to tweak stuff. I'm going to do a whole lot of crap to my tank anyway, but I'm going to tweak the caulk up and turn down the amount of water on the auto water change, the amount of new water.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, that's a total lie. That's a total lie. I'm not going to do that. The auto top off will run less, exactly as you said, right?
Yeah.
If the caulk is putting in 200 mil, then that's 200 mil less that the auto top off will call for. There we go.
So I mean, that's kind of not for like, that's not for the novice aquarist. You have to be pretty deep to be.
Oh yeah, you've got to have killed your tank once to decide to take the time.
That's a great motivator.
Separate the two. Yeah,
a great motivator.
That's a really interesting thing about the progression of people through the hobby. You can really see what you do at the beginning, because you go, I don't want to invest that much in time or product, and and then you find out what works and what doesn't, and eventually if you stick with it, you end up going, I don't want to deal with a problem again. So all of the disaster avoidance issues are going to be used on my system now.
Yeah, I mean, some people might want, I mean, caulk has been around for forever, but some people might wonder, like, well, God, why the hell would you use it if it could pose such a threat? But you kind of have to experience a few things and know how to set it up and how to use it, because, man, the benefits of it is great. We could do a show on that.
Yeah, we
don't have to do it now.
And it's true, because but everything you do to your tank can kill your tank. Any additive can kill your tank. So,
oh, dude, well, that should be a guest. Guess who you would have to talk about caulk on Reef Beef?
Who's that? I can think
Craig Bingman.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, let's get Craig on.
Right?
Let's do a few.
Oh, we should do a thing where we call hello.
We should just randomly call, not tell him that we're going to call him. And just,
and he's like, hold on, let me put my pants on. Like,
right.
Why
no, keep him off. This is Reef Beef.
It's Reef Beef. It's important to be
like
naked.
Mark Levinson's question stream. This is,
Yeah.
I want to see what kind of underwear Bingman wears.
Yeah. Speaking of caulk. All right, what do we got to move to the next segment?
Yeah, which is story time. Because
story time, goody.
Because we were thinking about, what do we have? How do we present stuff what do we have to say? And so we have beef.
Not a damn thing.
We have beef.
Yeah.
No, we have 3 things. We have beef. Yeah. We've got experience stuff, practical stuff.
Yeah.
And then we've got stories from our sordid careers in reef keeping.
Exactly.
So we were going to talk. You talked about.
So get your snacks.
Get your snacks. I don't know. Maybe the Equal Aqualizer was a great story.
But that was a long ass story.
That was a long ass story.
A beef
this one won't be as long. Well, they may all run together.
Yeah.
Oh, we should name everything for food. It shouldn't be practicals. It should be like the amuse-bouche or or the mains, the appetizer.
Yeah.
I like that.
Let's do it.
We will as soon as we think of what to do. Oh, by the way, there's an aquatic wholesaler called Beef's Reef.
Oh.
And I when we decided that we wanted to change the name and came up with Reef Beef, I got in touch with him and I said, hey,
no way.
We want to do because why wouldn't, if you know that, you're
it's
an
nice.
asshole. You're an asshole if you don't reach out, right?
Like, fuck you, Beef. Wait, so is the dude's name Beef?
No, his name is I'd have to look it up.
That's a weird name.
His name's Eric, I think.
Eric, I have to look it up.
Yeah, Eric Walzak.
Eric, so give him a little prop.
Yeah, go to Beef's Reef. He does wholesale. He's in
wholesale.
He's in Wisconsin.
Freshwater and saltwater?
Yep. and fresh saltwater fish, inverts, corals, plants, food, rock, equipment, and other stuff. So
where's he located?
He's in Wisconsin, but they ship. So
okay.
I think if you just do a search for Beef's Reef, it'll come up. I'll do that search and we'll put it in the description. I'm definitely check it out. But he was totally cool. This is the thing. You know, some people were like, "Oh, are you afraid to get sued?" It's like, no, I'm afraid to be an asshole.
Talk to people.
Yeah. So, and he wrote back. He was like, "Wow, I can't believe you asked. Thank you." And yeah, no, I think it's a great name. I have no problem with it at all.
You know, it's kind of, life can be kind of magical when you have even just a little bit of charisma and forethought to like just fucking act like a human and treat other people like humans.
And if he said no, that would really suck for my business.
Yeah, and then we
use a different
shit all over him.
Yeah, we go fuck off, Beef.
Yeah.
No, we would not use Reef Beef because that's not cool to wreck somebody else.
No.
Yeah.
So let's do some wholesale business with Beef's Reef because he's a cool dude.
Reef, we're going to check it out for sure.
Hell yeah.
Story time. It's my story, right? Okay.
Yes.
Right. So I worked on a 212,000 gallon reef tank for 10 years. Small. It's a big tank. It's like 60 feet at the Academy of Sciences, 60 feet from its longest. It was 25 feet deep at its deepest. And it was big and it was shaped weird on the inside and the outside. And so there's a lot of fish in that tank. At one point there was 2,500 fish in there. And catching fish out of there can be a pain, right? So, you know, we have hand nets. You can scare stuff into hand nets. We had some barrier nets, you know, just like you collect in wild reefs. You set up a barrier, you swim the fish into it, and you can catch them off that barrier net. Traps, we did traps. We did lobster traps a lot. We had 2 Klein's butterflies that went crazy in that tank and started nipping on everything. And I caught them by using a square crab trap, right, with a string on it.
And put some enticing stuff in there.
Put yummy stuff in there, and I actually ended up having to put yummy stuff in a test tube in there, so it would swim out, so it wouldn't swim out, moving in there. And I would also make these envelopes of Vexar, which is, you know, like expanded. It's like mesh, and I would put shrimp in there. And what I would do is, you know, we would try to do it from the surface. And I remember Matt Wandell and I once, we were using critter keepers so we could see what was going on. Turning all the pumps off, just like a big mask. We were laying on the deck, you know, holding a string. But sometimes they won't go in. And I remember snorkeling at the top of the tank and having that cage in below, waiting for the clients to go in and, you know, pulling it up and catching it.
Damn.
That was very effective.
Like regular hobby size ones?
Hobby size what?
The little critter. I mean, I have those, the acrylic tubes with the trap door.
Yeah, we didn't use that. I used just a crab trap, which is just metal mesh.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what we use. The regular trap is too small and fragile and hard to pull up and down, and you would have to modify it a lot. Where, you know, a $15 crab trap was easy. Yeah, it would rust, but it would last 3 or 4 years. And actually, it was pretty good because you could pull it and it would pull the door up, and the door would go slam. And then you pull it up and that holds the door closed. So it's actually a really neat device. Somebody decided that they should put Acanthochromys into that tank. And Acanthochromys is a little chromis. It's a big chromis. When it's big, it's big and brown and ugly. And when it's little, it's got a cool orange stripe. And these chromis have parental supervision. The parents guard the eggs, and after they're born, the parents guard the larvae. So it's like one of the only saltwater fish to do that. Everything else just goes into the water column. So, you know, the larva goes and they're on its own. These guys, you know, wait till the larvae is, you know, 3/4 of an inch to an inch, and then they don't care anymore, you know, till they're really competent fish. And they protect them from everything else. And so when those were put in, some of us kind of said, we probably shouldn't put these in because they're going to be really successful. And then they, you know, tear apart, they pick territories and they strip SPS and other corals to lay their eggs. And, but we were overruled, and that's fine. But then all of a sudden, 2 years later, there were 300 acanthochromous in the tank.
Whoa.
And they were, out competing other fish, right? This is what happens, right? So we had to catch them out. So we set up the barrier net, and we're able to get some the first time, right? Scaring them in 3 or 4 divers in the tank. And then diminishing returns after that, because they're not stupid fish. They see this big white thing go in the tank, and they go, screw you. We're not going to go over there. And so we use different nets in different places and try to make different areas. There's a tunnel kind of behind on the back of the tank that no one can see. It's a
I remember that one. Is that the one that had sun corals?
No, you can't even see it. It was designed so you'd be able to see a long length through it when the tank was full. But what happened was when the tank got full, the refraction made it impossible to see it. So it was a great place to store stuff or to do work. And we were able to actually net off the entire area in the middle. And then we would net off all the holes that the fish could dart out through. So it actually made a good collection spot. But these fish got too smart for that really quickly too. So these fish are really problematic. It's not just like we have too many of them. It's a coral tank. It was like, is it a coral tank or a fish tank? And if it's a coral tank, these fish gotta go, right? Yeah. And so we had several fish like that. The Kleins had to go, unfortunately. We had a couple pairs of fox faces that had to go. We had lineatus tangs that had to go. Lamarck's angels. A lot of these though you could catch just with the trap, with the crab trap. It was great. It was easy. It was fun. It wasn't easy. It just took patience, right? That's the main thing with catching fish. So we got a ton of these fish. The last resort, I tried to hook in a line, but all the other fish would come and grab the food off of it before we could get them. Spent like 2 years trying to catch these fish before I went, can we just spearfish them out? Nobody wants these. They're not endangered.
How big?
When they're adults, they're about that big, from about 3 to 5 inches.
Do they sit still for very long?
Well, let me tell the goddamn story.
Dude, I have so many questions. So when you're done, I got a bunch of questions.
No, you can start the questions. No,
yeah, but I'll mess you up. I'll mess up your story.
So nobody wants them, right? When we were catching them with nets, we would euthanize them. Yeah. So it was like, we got to get these out of here. So we got permission to go in and spearfish them. And the first time we went in, it was me and Luis Roja, because he's really good at it. He might have actually awesome. He probably had the idea to do it first. He's like, spearfish them. And we're like, but they're small. He's like, yeah, I'm really good. I was like, okay. Yeah. So really? We set up on the surface, there's a bucket with MS-222 to euthanize them as soon as because we don't want them to suffer at all. And so Louise and I get in there, turn off all the webcams, because that's probably a horrible thing to show the public. It's just but the Academy did a poster about this, so I don't even work there, so I can talk about whatever I want, but they're cool with it because it's in the public domain that this happened. And we also ended up doing it in the swamp to get out red devil cichlids. Yeah. So Louise and I go in early one morning. The lights have come on early. We turn the flow off. He and I swim around. Boom. Because they don't know. The fish don't know this is coming. So they're like the rulers of the tank. They're like, fuck all y'all. What are you doing? Boom. Yeah. Spear. Got them. So we went in with Hawaiian slings because they can only go so far. They run out of power.
What are they called?
Hawaiian sling. It's like a spear with an elastic, with a big elastic, and you hold it and you let it go and it shoots forward. But it can't go too far because you've got the thing attached to you. You know, you've got the elastic band attached.
So it's not like the aluminum gun thing.
No, but we'll get to that. The guns are so powerful that if you miss, bad things are going to happen.
Yeah, would like get in the insert or whatever.
Yeah, or whatever, crash through corals or whatever, and we didn't want to do it. So the first time we were in, Louise is like nailing the fish just in the water column. And I can hear him giggling. Because it's like
he's a murderer.
It's I love the hunting. I hate the killing. So it's a shame because the hunt's really, really fun. Yeah. Dead fish is not exactly the best thing that I enjoy at all. But you get one on your spear, you go up, you somebody else is up there with gloves, they pull it into the bucket and it dies right away.
Yeah.
And if you do a clean shot, it dies right away as well too. So
yeah.
So Luis is just like bam, 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 right? And
he's he is awesome, huh?
He's super awesome. I think I got 8 that day.
Yeah.
But I had never spearfished in my life before. So then, so that was like, we got about 80 of the fish. So that still leaves over 100, right? The next time we go in, they go, fuck you guys. And they start hiding.
Yeah.
Anytime we get
You just killed the stupid ones.
Right. The really stupid ones.
Yeah.
So then it was like, they quickly learned that if you got in on scuba with a spear, they would disappear. If you got in on scuba with a net, they would disappear. If you got in on scuba without any of those things, they were in your face.
Really?
Fuck these fish.
Yeah.
Just a nightmare. And they're still breeding. So like, we were on larva watch. As soon as we saw a bunch of larvae, it's like, we got to get in now. We got to get in now and collect them, because it turned out you could collect the larva with just a couple of blue nets really easily. You just, not really easily. All of this, every fish you're going to catch, you have to learn how to catch, right? So it turned out that you could get under the cloud of larvae and scare them up out of the rocks and then sweep them all up with a net.
Yeah.
Bring those up to the surface and
Good
bring
Lord.
them out to a bucket.
Dude, I have questions.
Go ahead.
Okay. So one of the things, first of all, like who would even decide to just, I mean, so I was a zookeeper for a while, but it was a small zoo and my exhibits were my exhibits. We didn't mess with it. But I mean, a tank that big, it's got to be like a group of people.
Yeah, it's run by committee.
But so my question, who in the hell, like how did a fish like that, like just make it into there?
Somebody above my decision-making level decided that they should be in the tank.
I mean, this sounds mean, but I'm just saying they should have put on scuba gear, like, or just all the man hours or woman hours.
These are all things that were brought up before the fish went in the tank.
Yeah. And
they went in the tank anyway, and then we had to do all this work.
Then you should have been the next meeting. You're like, it's like we knew.
I'm pretty sure that was said at a meeting.
Yeah.
Or 7. Because this was a real pain in the ass. And when I left the aquarium side, there were still 3 in there. So we had gotten it down. So we would hunt them.
It's like polio.
So I would figure out ways to hunt them, and we would go in and we would have people chase them, and then people on spear. And, it was always like, okay, there are 2 things we're getting in the tank to do this. Number 1, don't shoot the acrylic. Number 2, don't shoot somebody else.
Yeah.
Because either of those things happen.
Or someone else?
Yeah. Just because that's how I like to roll. Exactly.
Just a little tiny hint of fear.
A little tiny hint of fear. And it's like, don't. This is an extreme measure. We're lucky to be able to do it. Otherwise, we just have to be dealing with these fish, which is terrible. There's other places that deal with them and they try to catch them.
So they normally eat coral?
They pick at it, like to farm to lay their eggs on. And we could never find, because the tank was so huge with all kinds of hidey holes and crevices, it was impossible to, so anyway, what I would end up doing is I would be able to look through these piles of branch rock and see where one of these Acanthochromos would poke its head out, like looking through the tunnel. And it's like, okay, I can get a shot through here, right? And I would sit there like this underwater, with my hand on the rock and my feet on rocks, looking down this channel in the rock where from time to time, Chromis would show itself.
Yeah.
And I would sit there and sit there and sit there. And when I would let go when it showed up, and I would catch some of them that way.
Yeah.
I would go in with a flashlight and find and learning where every nook and cranny in that tank is, which was really fun. But it's like, okay, they might be up in the cave in that fold, which they can't get away from. It's a dead end. So I'd get up in there with the flashlight and I'd be able to get them in there, right? Or figure out where they're hanging out and just kind of wait there and hold my breath a little bit and hope they calm down without the bubbles, or have somebody go outside and make noise. So all kinds of stuff like that. I eventually ended up getting a little gun that had like a trident on it. It was very weak, but it was because I couldn't load the spear, right? Because the spear has to have this much length.
Yeah.
But this gun was spring loaded. It was this big, so I could get into other places. And I was eventually I didn't do all of it. Other people did the spearing, we got it down to like 3 of them, a pair and 1 extra. And that's where it stood when I left. I'm not sure where that stands now, but that's a crazy.
But I mean, something left alone like that, it could just come right back.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's why I was always like, no, everybody every day is looking for larvae, because if we miss it somehow, every
that
time
sounds like a t-shirt.
Find them. If you miss it, and we miss it, all of a sudden we've got 50 to 100 of these fish in the tank now instead of 3.
I feel like all the dead bodies should have been put on the desk of the person who decided to put them in there. Now I'm going to get you in trouble somehow.
I don't know. Wow, and I'm not naming names. Who cares? I mean, I don't think anybody cares. I don't know. I think it's the coolest story in the world.
The person is going to watch this show and they're going to cry.
I doubt that they'll cry.
No,
they're not going to watch this either. Would be my guess. But it was very cool.
Lewis is going to watch it and he's going to relive glory days.
Yeah, that's right. And then they had the problem in the swamp with the red devils, which was the same thing.
That sounds like a headline. When
we opened, red devils were going in that tank, and people were going, we probably shouldn't put these fish in here, because we're going to have 1 million of them and we're not going to be able to catch them. And in that tank, once we electrofished, and
was there a gator or something?
Yeah, there was a gator. So getting in there was a whole thing. And there were snapping turtles. So they had to drop the water level, and then the gator had to be watched and fenced off. And then people had to be watching the snapping turtles, so I didn't get hit by a snapping turtle. And we had people outside with lasers who would, point to where they saw one of the fish go.
How in the hell did you not film this?
I guess it's because it seems like a bad thing to show at a public aquarium.
Like people watching gators and people watching snapping turtles and lasers, and you were probably wearing a loincloth, right?
I was absolutely wearing a loincloth, and I had like war paint on.
Yeah.
Somebody probably did some filming, but it wasn't public. And then so it's like, we shouldn't advertise that this is happening, which I can totally understand.
We bring animals in here to display them, and then we kill them for your pleasure.
Right, which is clearly not what happened. The 3 years of trying to catch these fish out without doing this, but they were being killed up on the top anyway. I'm sorry, euthanized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, but see, okay, but this is interesting because, like I said, I was a keeper, but our section went big. But these big exhibits you're talking about, it is interesting when we try to play God on this grand scale, and even basic things like population of animals. You're like, oh, this is hard.
Right.
Besides just keeping the environment nice, it's just like, to balance populations.
Well, we always also said, running a mega reef tank is like driving a ocean liner. You have to make your course corrections small and way in advance. So that's why something like putting this kind of fish in there, it was like, can we not do that? Because if that goes wrong, we're going to hit that iceberg, and then we're going to have to deal with that for years.
And someone said, no, they'll be great. They'll get big and ugly, and they'll be a huge problem.
We'll just catch them out. We'll just catch them out. You guys will just catch them out.
Meanwhile, they weren't the ones in there.
Yeah. But, once the idea that fish have to be removed from that exhibit, right? Because that exhibit was also set up fish first, right? Which makes sense from a public aquarium. This is what it's going to look full to most of the public eye. But setting up with that many fish first makes getting corals established in there a little bit more, well, not a little bit, makes it more difficult. because fish have attitudes, and a huge, 2,500, 3,000 fish of 120 species. There's all, like, and Harlequin tusks were put in that tank, and it was like,
really?
They're going to eat the snails.
Yeah.
And we need snails.
Yeah.
So, and it took a long time to be able to get permission to pull the Harlequin tusks out, because it was like, they're eating all the snails. We're just throwing snails in, and the snails can't do their job. So, on a small scale, a reef tank is an interesting thing, and you've got to be able to troubleshoot in advance like that. On a mega,
well, for sure. Tank, I mean, even like getting a Harlequin tusk, and I've seen them in reef tanks. I think I did one in a reef tank once, but it's fun. But like, it precludes you from a lot of things that you need to clean up. So, but I mean, that's hard enough to get something like that out of a 500. I couldn't imagine a 200 250,000 gallon aquarium.
I think we caught 2 of them out of there. They weren't so bad. What we had to do is set up the catching field, where the net goes. I used to call it the killing zone, but
yeah,
that feels too military for me.
Isn't that like a Khmer Rouge movie?
It's very much like, that's how it felt. And it was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We know the fish starts over there on the far side of the tank, or over there on the far side of the tank. So I'm going to be the catcher. It's going to be me in this game. I'm going to be down and close to the catch zone, right?
Yeah.
And you guys are going to move the fish along with nets. And then if we're coming from this direction, you have to come down from over here, 5 people in the tank, and cut the fish off from going this way, because the fish has to go this way. And you're going to be up here because the fish can go up. The fish has to go down. And
Good
so
Lord.
as soon as it would get into the throat of the catch area, which was all netted off all over the place, then I would rush in with 2 nets like a big thing and get it to run into the net, and would be able to catch it. And we'd have someone stationed to be on the other side of the net as well, but they wouldn't come in until they looked around the corner and saw me moving, because if they were in, the fish would see them and bolt back the other way.
Didn't that ever turn into like Keystone Cops?
No, they actually all went pretty well. We did a lot of prep for it, and we can't get hurt. And if you're not paying attention, we're going to blow all this, and it's everybody's time, and we need to catch this fish. So people were pretty great about it.
Did any humans ever poop in the tank?
No, that's a story from another aquarium. That's somebody else's story, not mine.
How upsetting.
How exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's fish catching in a big tank. How does that relate to smaller things? Every fish, you have to learn what it's going to do and how to catch it.
Yeah. I caught a fish. It was a long time ago, but I got an eagle hook. Makes this tiny, and I caught a fish just by enticing it with a bloodworm once.
Yeah. I've done that. I caught clownfish out of my reef with a little tiny, I have a 1 foot rod.
Yeah.
Come on. Pull it up real quick.
You're like, pull, fish down.
And then it was like, I caught it. Why didn't I film that? That was the stupidest thing in the world not to film.
That's kind of like, that's my catchphrase for you. Why didn't I film that?
Why didn't I film that? Because I was doing this before phones were a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I caught a 6-line wrasse.
Uh-huh.
Put a 6-line wrasse in my tank. What a stupid thing to do. To put a 6-line
Yeah, that's super hard. Dude, 6-line is, I mean, it was I used to have a lot of them in reef tanks, because in the earlier 2000s and 90s, that was a uber popular fish. It's crazy. Nowadays, you don't see them anymore. But it was like bread and butter fish back then. Yeah, but even catching a 6-line wrasse out of a 50-gallon is damn near impossible. So
after my 6-line became a terror and killed a ventralis in front of me, which was horrible.
Yeah, they're relentless.
He had to come out. I tried everything. I used one of those round traps at the time, those cylinder ones.
Yeah.
And I put a mirror in it to see if I could get him to go, off. To go. Yeah. Ignore the mirror. I took that trap. I glued in a screen that he could see through, a Vexar screen. Took another 6-line wrasse, put it behind the Vexar. Put it in. Within a minute, he went right in to attack the other fish. And caught him. And then I gave away 2 6-line wrasses.
Yeah.
So
Oh my God.
everything is a freaking, you're catching a wrasse is different than catching a rabbitfish, which catch different than catching
in my
a butterfly.
experience, wrasse are pretty easy to catch in traps because they're very like inquisitive.
Yeah.
And they'll be first to the food and whatnot. But yeah, like 6-line wrasses hate beta, hate each other. So
this blue face angel I have in one of these tanks, I had to catch, and it's just. So this is what I do with traps. I take a trap and I put a magnet on the top of it or on the side, and I magnet it either to my center brace or to the front of the tank.
Okay.
Why have it float around, right?
Yeah.
Then it's at the front. I can reach it all the time, whatever. Make sure it can open and close, all that kind of stuff. Then I just put it in there and I feed only in that trap for like 4 days.
Yeah, no, that's what we did back in the days. They would say, keep the trap in there and just like keep it as part of the tank. And then the fish just know to go in there and eat. And it can make it like a no-brainer. There was a thing we used to do where you'd even just do that with a net. You'd keep a net in the tank.
Right. So they're not scared of it. When I do it, I feed and then I stand there, and I put bait that stays in the trap, and I'll stand there for an hour, and when I feed, I'll sit there for a half hour every time to watch, because sometimes you get lucky and the fish decides to go in. Usually it'll go in once and run back out, and it'll do that 3 or 4 times. But once I see it do that, I kind of feel like I'll be able to get you eventually.
Yeah.
You just sit there, and then when it's time, either you've got one that you yank, or you got one, I put a weight on the door because I want it to freaking slam closed. Brine shrimp are great as bait because they go to the top of the trap. So if the door is closed a quarter of the way, the fish goes up here to try to get and then the door closes.
I have one that has a heavy, it's acrylic, but it has a heavy glass door.
Yeah,
so
that's a good one.
Fast.
That's like the Aquamatic one, I think.
Yeah, but there's been times where I've put food in there though, and the fish is over here on the body, like trying to get the food, and I'm like, dude, go to the door, and they're like, oh, I can't get in here.
Just wait, and then it's easy. So that's my story. We're out of time. Anything else?
Sweet.
So
I believe that's it.
That is the end of this episode of Reef Beef.
Our rebrand.
A rebranding episode.
Yes.
I think we've got our album covers ready to drop.
Yeah. But it's like a new grand opening with new ownership.
Yeah. And maybe
under new management.
Maybe we'll keep this name for more than 3 episodes.
We might.
And all right, cool. We'll see what happens. If we'll put this on Facebook. If you got questions or stuff, we'd love the feedback.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at right now.
Cool.
We are not exploding yet into world domination.
But we will be moving towards that Emmy.
Yeah. And we've got our first guest lined up. I don't know when we're going to have him. Don't say who it is.
Okay.
Very tall.
Not Howie Mandel.
Not Howie Mandel. Excellent reef keeper. Excellent aquarist. Good scientist. Friend.
Oh, Danny DeVito?
Danny DeVito is going to be on this show soon.
Yes.
In his everyday clothes.
He's taller in his everyday clothes.
He is, and different colored hair. Okay, now we're just talking past the end. We should stop.
Yeah. Okay.
Right on. Peace, everyone. We'll see you later.
Love.
Love. All right. Stop recording.